Hello, welcome to Beginning App and 2D Game Development. This is Ben Geisler. I'm going to be walking you through some of the advanced steps for Hello World. If you have not yet watched tutorials 1 through 5, please watch that. This is expanding upon that, adding to it, and that kind of thing. Also, I want to give a big thanks to Lectiapi. Lectiapi is the YouTuber that first created some of these Hello World applications, and I am kind of modifying those and adding to them and enhancing them. So to start off with, we're going to start with Hello World. This was the one you had from before, so go ahead and go to Visual Studio 2010 Projects, Hello World, and open that guy up. Now what we're going to be doing is creating a simple game that involves sort of a walled off area, kind of like this. And what's going to happen is we're going to have a ball in this area, and it's going to kind of bounce around from place to place, and we're going to be able to basically see it bouncing off the sides of the wall. Bounce, 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 and it's going to keep bouncing around. We're not going to get that far in this tutorial, but we will basically take our first steps towards that type of a game. And what you're going to do is when you click on the ball, it's going to teleport to a different location, and you're going to get some points. So it's going to keep bouncing around, and you click on it, you get a point. You click on it again, you get a point, and you just keep getting points. So a very simple game. So what we need to do is we need to first create our ball and our wall. So to create our ball, we go into Paint. Now this is probably what it looks like for you when you first go into Microsoft Paint. What you're going to want to do is go to View, turn on your grid lines, go back to Home, go to Properties, and make this 32 by 32. And then you'll want to go to View, zoom in a couple times so you can make this sufficiently large. We're going to create a ball object. Let's go ahead and grab the circle and place it sort of like let's try that again. Sort of like that. Just kind of dragging it out. Probably is good enough. I'll just put it, kind of center it, and then I'm just going to save that. Just go up to Save and go to PNG. Now this needs to be saved, and keep note of this. It's probably going to by default have you set to desktop. That's not what you want. You want to go and find your Visual Studio 2010 folder. Get used to finding this because you're going to need to find it quite often. Visual Studio 2010 Projects, Hello World, Hello World, Hello World Content, and this is where you will save it as ball.png. I already had one, so it's overwriting it, but yours will just go ahead and save as ball.png. So we've got the ball now. Now the next step is we need to make the wall texture. So I'm going to open up Paint again and go to New. Again, I'm going to use a 32 by 32 kind of viewing area here, and I'm going to create a wall. So walls are going to be made from squares, and they're going to kind of be like tiled. And our wall can look like this. It should probably be filled in with some color. Oops. Let me try that again. Now I'll make this wall here. And yeah, our wall should probably be filled in with something. Select the paint bucket tool, select light blue and fill that in, and just for effect I'm going to draw some little cross marks here just so it can kind of look a little bit patchy. And I'm going to go ahead and save that as wall.png, and now I've got my wall and my ball. So now that I have those, I can close out of Paint, go to the Hello World project, go to Hello World Content, and if you right click this time you go to Add Existing Item. Already in this place we have the sprite font from before, so we can just keep that there. Just add existing item, and you can add your wall. We've got our wall, and now you can go add existing item, and we can add our ball. So we've got our wall and our ball. So next we need to sort of describe what this game world is going to look like so that we can start coding it up. One good way to do this is to kind of do a quick design for the game. I already kind of gave you my description of it. We were going to have this like sort of walled area. It's going to look kind of like this. And we're going to have a ball somewhere in here bouncing around. So if we start listing out our objects, we're going to have a ball. Well, first off, we're going to have a wall. That's going to have a texture on it. It does not really need a position because these are going to be set positions. We're basically going to have a tile here, a tile here, a tile, tile, tile. It's going to be all tiles all around the playing area. The ball, however, is going to need a position as well as a texture. Also, we're going to need a score, the score, and a time. The score and the time are of font type. And that font needs a particular font setting for the image as well as a position. And that's probably about it. We also probably need a mouse for the pointer. Those are probably that's the basic entity list of things we need. It's good to think of this as an entity list because all games have objects that they're part of, no matter how complex or simple the game is. It's always got an entity list. In this case, we've got a wall entity, a ball, which is a position and a texture, a font, and a mouse, and that's about it. The ball's going to bounce around. The walls are always going to stay there, and that's about it. So I'm just going to save this as design. Okay, now that I've got designwallgame.txt saved, I can go ahead and put my wall into play inside of Visual Studio Express 2010. So let's go back to that and go back into the game class where we've got our sprite batch definition. Basically inside of here we're going to want to have a texture 2D definition. I'm going to call that wall. We're also going to want to have a texture 2D for ball. And we're going to want to have a vector 2 for ball pause as well. And we don't really need one for wall. Wall is going to be textured throughout. We do want a velocity eventually, which is going to end up being random pretty soon here. We're going to say ball velocity, and that's going to have an X and a Y component. So we've got our texture 2D wall and our texture 2D ball. Now we need to go down to load content, and this is where we're going to, if you remember, this is where we actually have the sprite batch loading in. We're going to actually need to say wall equals content.load. This is where we put tutorial 2D and we put wall in here. Next we put ball equals content.load tutorial 2D ball, and that loads up our ball. So we've got wall, so we put in wall equals content.load texture 2D wall. That's our name. That has to be the name that you put in the Hello World content setting over here. next we put in ball equals content.load texture 2D. And that should be the same there. That has to be the same name as what we put over here as well. Now we can begin our updating, and we go down here to where we were drawing last time, where we've got the base.draw, and we're going to put in, we're going to draw our ball, which is sprite batch.draw. You notice how it takes a texture 2D. I'm going to say ball. It also takes a position. I'm going to draw this at 32, 32 because the wall takes up 32 units, so that's where I want to draw the ball the first time. We also have to put a color in here. We can put in color.white because what's going to happen is that's the fill color. If you put in anything other than white, it's going to just draw over that, and you're not going to be able to see the ball. Also, we have to put new vector in here to create a new vector. So put new vector to 32, 32, color.white. And that should draw our ball. So if we save this, remember always save early, save often, and we run this, we should see a ball. Yep, we've got our little ball. So next up we're going to draw a bunch of wall objects. And so here we say sprite batch .draw wall, and if we draw this at new vector 2 0, 0 color.white, you can see what happens there. As you can see, that gives us our wall, but what we really want is we want that wall to be all along the side. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a for loop for that. So we're going to say for x equals 0, x less than, so the default screen size right now is 480 by 800. So we want to draw basically all the way till it gets to 800, but we're going to draw it in 32 pixel sized tiles. So what we're going to say is, well, x is less than 800 divided by 32 because each one takes up 32 spots. And then we say x plus plus. So this is going to go from x equals 0 all the way up to 800 divided by 32, which, let's see, 800 divided by 32, just checking my math, that is 25. We could put in just 25 there, but you know, that's just to keep it simple here, let's just do 800 divided by 32. Also next we're going to want to actually draw the ball. So I'm going to take my line up here, I'm going to move it, oops, I'm going to move it there, and I'm going to say new vector, and this is my x and y, so I can say x times 32 here, because each one is going to be drawn by whatever that x value is times 32. Then I go again, and I see that it draws that top wall for me. Now I want to do the same thing down below. So I say sprite batch .draw wall new vector 2, and I'm going to say 800 minus 32 for the x position. Add the same thing as before for the y, x times 32. Next I want to draw the bottom row, which should be sprite batch.draw wall new vector 2, and the x value on this should be x times 32. It's the same, but the y value is going to be different. This should be 480 minus 32 to draw along the bottom. And we're saying set the color.white, and that is it. I usually like to just test everything out before I get too far, just to make sure this is working, and yep, it's got the top and bottom. Next we need a for loop for the sides. And for this we're going to say x equals 1. And we're going to go down to 480 divided by 32. .480 divided by 32. And we say x plus plus and sprite batch dot draw wall new vector 2, and for this one the x should always be 0 and the y should be x times 32. And that is color dot white. Okay, so just check our work here. Yep, alright, and then next up we gotta say sprite batch dot draw wall new vector 2, and this one should be 800 minus 32 x times 32 color dot white, because it's basically 800 is the max width, and then just subtract 32 from it because that's the width of the tile. So we've got that there. Alright, so that's basically our wall. Next I'm going to make what's called a function to update the position of our ball. I'm going to call that function, to make a new function you just do something like this. You say private void, because it doesn't return anything. I'm just going to say simple ball update, and this is where I'm going to actually update the position of my ball. So every time I call this, I want the position to change. So for example, I could say ball pause dot x equals ball pause dot x plus 1, and then I can call that function from here, simple ball update, and what should happen is it should start drawing my ball across the screen, and it's not. And if anyone can spot the reason, it's not to give yourself a pat on the back. The reason is actually here, because we did a default drawing of 32 right here, where we said ball and then draw it at 32, 32. We actually are going to want to draw this at ball pause dot x and ball pause dot y. We can add our 32 on here, and that should fix it. And there we go. Now you'll notice it's got this kind of, before I even continue, I want to fix this alpha channeling, and that's what we call it in game terms. Also I want to fill the ball in, I think, and make it a certain color. I think I'm going to make it red. So I'm going to do those two things quickly before I even continue. To make it red, it's really simple. I can just go back into paint and go to ball and fill that guy in. If I select the paint bucket tool, and I'm going to make a red ball here, just save that off as ball.png, and that's going to be a red ball now. So you can make real-time updates like that. And next I'm going to use, now there's a couple programs you can use to get rid of the white borders around that. I'm actually going to use what's called GIMP. These are free programs you can use. Check out our software section for downloads for these links, or links to these downloads. But for now, I've already got it loaded up. I've already got GIMP installed. It's right here. I'm just going to load up GIMP and fix this quick. Don't really have time for a full GIMP tutorial, but I'll show you some of the basics. First off, what we want to do is we want to open up our file. So we're going to file open And GIMP is a little bit odd. It'll first come up with a thing that looks like this, kind of a non-standard file opening thing. Just go to your folder. You can just go there like you normally would. Go to projects. We're in Hello World. World content. Ball.png. That opens it up. You can just go and zoom in on this. Probably 8:1 is good. Now, to get rid of this white around here, we're going to make what's called an alpha channel. So you go to layer it, and you go to say transparency, add alpha channel. Oh, it looks like this already has an alpha channel, so we're good to go. What we're going to do next is we're going to select the same color tool, it's called. And if I select it like that, it's automatically going to select all the white around the border. So I selected this select by color tool, I clicked on the white area, and that just selects all the white area around the ball. And then if I hit delete, it actually deletes all of that area around it. And then what I can do is I can just save this. It's going to save as a VCF file, which is a GIMP file. I like to save those just in case I ever come back in here, so I'm just going to click save. That doesn't actually create a PNG for me, so what I want to do is I go File, Export, and I want to say export as a PNG here, ball.png export, and export. Now I'm going to go back into my game and make sure that that worked. And indeed that worked, and we no longer have the annoying white edges around there. What we want to do next is we're going to make it such that the ball bounces once it hits this this wall. We're going to do, there's a different way we're going to do that once we get to week 3. But for now, I'm just going to do it by position, and I'm just going to detect when it gets to that position, and then change the actual orientation of which way it's updating. So it would basically start counting down from there. So it's going to go all the way up to basically 800 minus 32, and then when it starts back coming down, so basically if you look at our little design here, 832 would be somewhere, or 800 would be here, 800 minus 32 would be around here. When it gets there, then we're going to start subtracting until we get back down here, and that way it's going to appear that it bounces. So in our updater, we're going to change simple ball update basically, so that we're going to say, well, first off, we're going to make what I call an updater, int updater, and I'm going to call this, it's going to start at 1. But it could change basically. I'm just going to say int updater equals 1, updater, and now if we are, if we are greater than dot x equals 100 minus 32, actually I want to say if x is greater than 800 minus 32, then I want to start decrementing it, and I want to say updater equals updater or equals -1. I want to say ball plus 32 here, and I'm also going to move the update up so I can get that value before I go in. I'm going to move this whole thing up here. That is how it should look. We actually only want updater be set to 1 the first time it's ever used, so to do that we're going to move it. So I'm going to do cut. I'm going to move this guy up to right where the other stuff that we're using is declared, which is right here. So I'm going to paste that right here, so it should be up where by the rest of the class definition. And I'm going to try to debug that again and see how it's working. Okay, and that's just about working. For some reason it went beyond that row of wall. I'm just going to fix that. Looks like we got to make a slight modification to our draw call. Draw down here should be new vector 2 ballpos dot x plus 32 And to fix that one, what I did was I just changed this to ballpos.x instead of ballpos.x plus 32, and ballpos.y instead of ballpos.y plus 32, and that works. So to sum up, if you want to pause the video and take a look at this, we've got ballpos equals new vector 32, 32 up here. We've got loading content. We've got ball update equals if ballpos plus x plus 32 greater than 800 minus 32, then updater equals -1. So next up, what we need to do is make this so that it bounces on this far left wall and it comes back to us. So to do that, we want to say if ballpos dot x minus 32 less than 0, then updater equals 1. So we want to go back the other way in that case. And let's make sure that works. I'm going to pause this again, the recording of this, so that we can speed up the results. And we see it bouncing. And here we are just about to come to the moment of truth. You see it bouncing off that wall and then going back the other way. So we've got our ball going back and forth now. The next thing I want to do is I want to add something that basically says if I click on it, it randomly changes position. You'll notice that one problem here is that if I mouse over this area, it's not actually showing the mouse cursor. That can be fixed rather simply if we just go up to what's called our constructor, and we basically just say this stat is mouse visible equals true. Now if we run the game, yep, we should see our mouse. So the idea is whenever we click on it here, it should change position. So if you remember way back to one of the first tutorials, we had an update loop here where we basically said if keyboard gets state is key down keys dot escape then exit. I want to do the same type of thing, except I'm going to basically say if mouse dot get state dot left button dot equals mouse button state dot pressed. If that equals button state dot pressed. Now next up, what we need to do is we need to check if the position is equal to the position of the ball. So if mouse dot get state, mouse state is like, the mouse get state is like everything to do with the mouse. So the X and Y are right in here. So if that equals ballpos dot X and mouse dot get state dot Y equals ballpos dot Y, then we can teleport. I'm going to make a function called teleport. Really, we should be putting comments in all of our functions, but I'm not worrying too much about syntax yet. We're going to cover that in week 2. So teleport ball is going to teleport it to a random location in space. To teleport it, first thing we need to do is we need to say random rnd equals new random. This gives us a random number generator. Now we can say ball pause, and for now I'm just going to change the y just to make sure it's working. Equals dot next. Next takes two numbers, so I'm going to say 32 comma, and this is going to be basically 480 minus 32, because 480 is the maximum height of the window. So, okay, so basically ball pause.y equals rand dot next, and that should work, except for the fact that this won't work, because what's going to happen is it's basically impossible to get the exact position of the ball at any given moment. So you'll notice that that does not work. So what we actually want to do is we want to say if we're clicking anywhere inside of that little square. So, you know, anywhere inside of this square, we want to basically say that's kind of like the bounding box. And most games, even 3D games, they would call this like the bounding box. In the 2D game, that's sort of like the collision area that's accepted to be colliding, to say something's colliding with it. So we would basically want to say in the checker, let's see, where was it again? Okay, so here we basically want to say we can use our knowledge of math and absolute values here, because basically if the x position of the mouse minus the ball position is within a certain threshold, then we're going to say that it's pressed. So in this case, we know the width is 32, so we can say if math.abs of mouse.getStateX minus ballpause.x, if that whole thing is less than 32, and we got to put an extra parentheses here, and mouse.getStateY minus ballpause.y dot abs, if that is less than 32, then we should be within range to click on it. So let's give that a shot again. And you see that it is changing position as we wanted it to. So that is our game for this week. Pretty soon what we'll do is we'll add a score that increments every time you click this, and we'll also make a change in the X. But for now, I figured that's enough. Other things to note is that this was fairly sloppy. We probably should make a class for the ball. That's something we'll talk about near the end of week 2, even maybe beginning of early week 3. And that class would have held the position of the ball as well as the velocity. We also want the velocity to be changing over time. It's not right now. Also, this draw loop is drawing the wall. All in here, we probably should make just a separate function just to draw the wall. We'll cover that later as well. But for now, you've got a basic game. You should feel good about that. It's very simple and kind of boring game, but a game nonetheless. And we will complete this game as we get into weeks 3 and 4. And that is it for Unit 1. Stay tuned for Unit 2 videos. Also, there is a quiz you should take before Friday. And there's an assignment that is going to be due as well. The assignment is non-graded, but you can turn it if you'd like. We will try to give feedback if you request feedback. Otherwise, it's just something for you to try on your own, and we will post the answer next week. That's all for Unit 1. Thanks, and see you next time.